Hey, Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. Tell us who you are, what you do.
So my name is Matthew, and I'm a hopeless story addict. In my daily life, and the capitalization, I think, is Seth Godin said on one of your podcasts. I love that one, by the way, and I love the fact you include the link to it still, because it's buried in the past of all the wonderful content you have. Is really all about that, and the way that I do that, on a daily basis when I'm not doing it with my friends, my family, my kids, and anybody that will entertain me, is supporting change makers reshape their narrative, rewrite their story, figure out what that story should be so it aligns with their vision, and help them with an actionable strategy so that they can actually put that into practice and ultimately build meaningful connections in their business and get that collective success with and through their teams, their stakeholders, and their clients.
So, a lot of people listening, even including myself over the years, and even sometimes I get in my own head, we know so many different things, right? And especially when a client comes to us with a problem, we get so excited. It's kind of like that Tommy boy, right? Like, you're going to say yes, and then let me tell you everything. You get excited, and then you blow the sale because we're not telling the right things at the right time. And I just had an interview maybe a half hour ago. It might be from last week for you guys listening. I never know when these goes live. Sorry, the cat's out of the bag. It's not live. But we were talking about kind of what separates the owner from the salespeople, and it's the stories that the owner knows. But it's also, so let's kind of get it. Like, I know you're known for, there's what, seven business type of stories that you can tell. And I think that would be a good conversation in order to kind of go through some of those. And let's help the listeners tell better stories so they can attract the right clients, attract the right team members, so they have that freedom that they've always wanted. Does that sound good to you?
It sounds absolutely wonderful. So the seven types is I love the fact you mentioned the seven types. So I actually came up with the seven types back in December of 22. I spend a lot of time berating the use of Hollywood in the hero's journey. In fact, I don't even like the word storytelling. Kind of funny coming from somebody who self-professed storyteller and lover of stories, right? And the reason why I don't like the word storytelling, in part, is because of the active part of it, the telling, right? And in part because of the story part and what that means. And as I was saying to a friend at lunch yesterday down on Alki Beach in Seattle, is we are not seeing and hearing the world around us, right? That's not what's around us. We are interpreting. Our brain, through its limited number of colors it can see, frequencies it can hear, all that, brain science stuff, and it's building this picture, and it's building this experience, and it's putting us at the center of this experience. That is where all of this stuff comes from, right? And how we then communicate that is where we start to touch on this thing called storytelling. And whether we're trying to get somebody's attention that there's a wolf threatening the sheep, or stopping our children from leaving the campfire and going into the woods at night, or talking about a hunt and communicating all of the best parts of that information so that we can remember it and then we can go do it again. These are where we started to form these things that we now call stories. And so what I'm saying here is actually very simple. I don't want you to think about storytelling. I'll give you the word story because until I can figure out another way of saying it, it's something that we can agree on, right? I want you to think about the story that you're living today, right? Intentionally or otherwise. And in different parts of our lives, we may be more or less intentional. You may be 26 years old, just proposed to your future spouse, and be very focused on building a new life together and knowing what you want that story to be. You might be 18 years, 19 years old and have come up with a business idea that you're starting to put into practice, and you're very, very focused on what you want that story to be. But other parts of our lives, it might not be so clear, right? So there's a spectrum. How intentional are we being about the story that we're in? And if you're like me, even when you're intentional to a point, over time, that might get a little bit sloppy. And that's where what you mentioned about the owner and the salespeople starts to really manifest as a problem in a business. And that is, if the sales team don't understand the story, don't embrace and live and believe in the story, are they going to tell that story? If they can't remember it, are they going to tell it? Are they going to be a part of it? And obviously the answer to those questions is no, right? So as the owner of your agency, you have an opportunity to be intentional with your story. And so back in December of 2022, I decided that it was the holidays. I was going to give myself a little bit of time to wallow in the old storytelling models that everybody knows, right? Like Hero's Journey is one of the most popular ones. But my second most favorite is Charles Booker's 7 Types of Story. And so I start going through his 7 types of story, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so somebody must have come up with this for business, right? They hadn't. So long story short on that, I ended up coming up with these 7 types of story, which I know align to what our clients deal with, aligns loosely to change management, loosely. So you can poke holes in it, I'm sure. But those 7 types of story that's where they come from. They come from business. And you can go and find yours by going to our website and spend 10 minutes answering 14 questions. And you can find out what that is. And that really what that is it's a seed. It's a tool for you to then go and water and nurture and add all the structure and protection around, give it the right fertilizer, and to put the right, the organic netting over the fruit, right, for your story. But that's what I created that for, is to give people a really easy, practical way to start on this journey, which can be really confusing. Oh my goodness, what's my story? Where do I start? Who am I? What is it? What is this story thing anyway, right? It can be a bit of a mind mess. So that's why I created the 7 types of story.
So, looking at kind of your 7 types of, business stories that you have, how do these not align with, kind of the hero's journey, right? Because everyone's thinking of the hero's journey, like think of Star Wars, right? Luke had a problem. He went to, an advisor that pushed him to face his biggest fear of facing his father, Darth Vader. And then, he had the tools in order to do it, which, Luke needed innovation. He needed, a challenge. He needed a pivot. He needed to change perspective. He needed to have growth mindset, which kind of accomplishes a lot of these things. So what am I missing? What are we all missing out of kind of what you define as the 7 types versus like the hero's journey?
Yeah, I think Seth Godin said it really well, actually, on your podcast is of one of other places, and that is, this isn't something that I own, so to speak, right? Yes, I figured out how to put it like this. The hero's journey was figured out to be put in that way. Any kind of content, right? But if Einstein was wrong, right, then that's got a whole different set of implications. But if we believe that what he did was discover something, right, then, and there's an agreement on what that is, and we can use that together, that's similar to this as well. And that's actually what I spend a lot of my time talking about in early conversations with folks, and that is a movie, a book, the hero's journey. These are artifacts of that thing that I mentioned, that thing called story, that we're calling story. They came out of a whole journey of humanity, a whole experience of, from cave walls and verbal traditions, like one of the most famous stories of all time, right? The Bible. You can look at or especially the Old Testament, let alone the New Testament or the Quran, right? You look at any of the religious texts, they were not written down originally, right? They were a verbal tradition. And so the hero's journey is an artifact that comes out of storytelling. But if you try and use the hero's journey for the types of stories you're trying to tell, you're going to have to learn about what the terminology means. You're going to have to learn about, what does journey and return mean? What is dark night of the soul, right? What is dark night of the soul in my business, right? You're going to have to try and figure all this stuff out, and you get lost. It happened to me back in 2012 when I was hired to be chief storyteller of Microsoft Dynamics. I ran into the same problem, and I started to wonder, like, what could this look like? And then left Microsoft and came up with this stuff years later, right? So that's why when you look at that, you look at the hero's journey, you look at Star Wars, and you see some similarities, but there's also differences, right? So what we're talking about with the 7 types of story and where they come from is it comes from the things that we deal with in business every day, in the language that we're used to using every day. And by the way, that 10-minute little assessment, there's not a single question about storytelling in that. It's all about your business. And through that, it will spit out. A lot of consultants find themselves in the catalyst because of the reason they got into doing what they're doing. But you can move through each one of these steps. You can find yourself generally in one. You can sometimes have to move out of one and then move back. There's lots of different journeys, as many different journeys as there are types of people in business. But that's why you're seeing that kind of similarity to the hero's journey. But if we start to actually go into this and pick this apart, they take the catalyst, for example, it's like, well, how is that really manifest in Star Wars? Are we talking about the relationship with Obi-Wan? Are we talking about the fight in the bar that forces them off the planet? For innovation, are we talking about the Millennium Falcon? We talk about the lightsaber. We talk about the Force itself, right? And it starts to break down when you try and apply this to Star Wars or to the hero's journey, because it's an artifact that has come out of a different journey and different development, and one that's specifically designed to help you come up with your story for your business.
So the people listening, how can they tell better stories? And what stories should they tell in order to get to where they want to go?
What I'm about to say, you may well have heard before, goes back to the Seth Godin Einstein comment, and things are cliched for a reason. They are true, even if they sound kind of hokey, like the word empowered, right? Oh, it just gives, probably Microsoft gave me working at Microsoft for so long, gave me that feeling about that word empowered. And we start to use cliches as a crutch, right? And when we use them as a crutch, we don't really tap into what they really mean. And so what I'm going to say your authentic story, right? Your authentic story, where you actually draw your power from, that relates to your psychology, your experiences, your why. I'm a certified why coach, by the way, and it's a big part of what I do. Your why that drives you actually comes from the story, comes from those early formative years and how you figured out how to live. And then that starts to manifest through what you then choose to do in your life. So your authentic story can go really far back. And depending on the type of engagement I'm doing, if I'm doing a one-on-one coaching engagement, we can go pretty far back. If it's a business, if it's 3 executives, then maybe it looks at it a bit different. But your authentic story, spending time thinking about, why do I do what I do? You can go and do personality tests and things like that, right? Do a why assessment, but do it through the Why Institute, or I can help you with it, those types of things, right? Use that as fodder. But ultimately, to answer the question, why do I do this? That's going to give the heart of it, right? So you got the head and you got the heart, but you want that heart. And then the head is, how does this really show up on a daily basis? And that's what you can use a story type to hack or to help with, right? Find your story type. And if you found your story type was changing perceptions, maybe you've shifted your business, right? You've gone through the pivot stage and all this kind of stuff. And now you've got to change perceptions of maybe your customers. Maybe you need to fire some customers. Maybe you are moving into a new market, whatever the specific model is. Maybe you've got a new practice, right? And you need to change perceptions. We've now got this web development practice, or we're now doing research, right? We've that's something that we do now, for example. I'm not saying that we do, but you as your business might be adding that practice, but nobody knows it, right? So changing perception, that's going to give you that practical. So you've got the heads part of your story, you've got the heart, the why part of your story. That's going to give you something to work with. You can literally, after you listen to this podcast, get your pen out and start writing that head, heart, head. All right, do the assessment. It'll give you a real quick way to figure it out. Okay, so I'm growth mindset, and that's because I really love empowering other people and drawing out the best in people, and so that makes sense. Okay, good. And then the heart, I do this because, you know, at the beginning of my career, I had this experience, and it just really just warmed the cockles of my heart and fed my soul. It was one of the best jobs I ever had, and I loved it. And ever since then, I've always sought to try and help people in that type of way. And that's why today I'm doing what I'm doing. That will give you the beginning of that story. And we've got a ton of resources you can use to help bring that into life, literally on the website at no charge. But those two things, your head and your heart, if you start there, that will give you the beginning of finding your story.
Yeah, you know, when I look back at, I guess, the stories that I tell myself in my head of, you know, figuring out why I've been doing this for the past 10 years is really pretty simple. It's, I wanted to create a resource I wish I had when I was running my first agency, because I remember how challenging it was. I felt like there was always ups and downs. I didn't have predictability. I didn't have confidence in making certain decisions. And that's really how we've made all the decisions. So you're saying that's kind of the heart. Is that what I'm gathering from that?
That's the head.
That's the head? Okay.
So yeah.
What's the heart then?
So the heart. So let's go back a little bit further.
Okay.
I know you tell this story about when you were 22 and you're making websites, making fun of people, and your dad gave you this advice, and you spoke to this consulting firm that asked you how you're making money, how you got repeatable revenue, right? So maybe around that time, maybe recently, think of an experience that you had. It could have been working one-on-one with somebody. It could have been presenting to 1,000 people. It could have been inventing something. A time when you felt a combination of in flow, and so in flow, those in your immediate circle were either clapping and cheering you, patting on the back, praising what you did. So this kind of combination of you felt amazing because you were doing what you loved, and also the world was appreciating it. Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah. So you're talking about significance and contribution, I presume. Yep. Well, yeah. So when I would walk a group or our mastermind members through our foot in the door offering ladder, right? Because whenever I felt like one of the biggest challenges I felt like we always had was it took forever and a ton of wasted time to talk to the wrong prospect. And then to have a shitty client come on that I could have found out a lot long ago and blocked them. And then also to speed up the sales process or convert more. Like when I would walk an agency through going, hey, stop selling the retainer dummy. Sell this small little service first. It doesn't even matter what you charge. It's going to break down the barriers. You're going to work with them. You're going to see if you're going to like them, whatever it is. And when I first broke down that strategy, and then people started figuring out, oh my God, they're 20 times more likely to do business with me after the fact. So they were like, this works really well.
So tell me about you mentioned the foot in the door offer ladder and presenting it or coaching the mastermind group. Double click into that for me. Tell me what that feels like from your perspective. You're in that environment, you're doing your thing. Talk about that just for a second.
Well, I mean, you get huge, significance. When I sold my agency, I felt like I sold my soul because I recognized myself as an agency owner. That's how I identified myself. So then when I started breaking down a strategy that worked for my agency for other agencies, and they were like, man, this is gold. I really love this. This is going to make a bigger difference. I felt that significance again that I felt when I would work with LegalZoom or Tachi or Microsoft or whoever that I lost.
And that significance. I mean, I'm hearing you also describe it as the not just because that can come across like feeling significant can come across from an ego perspective, or it can come across from a giving perspective, right? I'm hearing in the subtext there that, and you mentioned like words of like help, for example, and their reaction, and the feeling of significance included
Well,
this ability to
it's
change
about
these
passing.
people
It's about passing things down,
passing down.
right? Like I felt like when I sold the agency, that was it. Like that's all I ever knew. I was like, oh, I can't contribute to helping anybody. Like I liked building brands. I liked building businesses. I liked helping my clients out. And when I sold, I lost that. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? And then when I was just talking to some of my old competitors, I was like, well, here's what we did to beat the hell out of you. And they're like, this is awesome. I was like, oh, well, maybe I got something here. Or here's how I got the budget from the prospect every single time, or whatever it was. And they're like, wow, this is cool. And then it just, seeing them be successful, it's kind of like when your kids, figure stuff out, they start walking or they start making the right decision. And you're like, that was part me. It was partly me. It was a lot them, but I had something to do with that.
When our first child started sleeping, he started sleeping through the night at about 12 weeks old, including.
Did you think they were dead when they slept through the night the
there was
first
all
night?
sorts of fear involved, yeah.
Yeah.
But we even flew back to England around that time, and he actually adapted pretty well. And we were like, yeah, we read the books and did the swaddling and this kind of stuff. Number 2 came along and showed us that actually it wasn't us, because we tried the same stuff. Now, of course, what there's an interaction between what you do and what they need, and that's a big part of life, right? But we were, exactly the same thing. We thought it was we had some skills there. But I'm hearing you say like helping them be successful, helping them take things at the next level. But in particular, I really liked how you said building, right? And you said passing down, and it made me think of building a home and then passing that home down a generation, right? And what that means, and the stability, the whole concept even of inheritance, right? That helps the future generations. And you're getting that kind of impact with the folks you're helping. I suspect you probably don't even like to think of them as clients because of your relationship with them, right? So that's fantastic. That's great. Now I want you to take those kind of feelings, right, and go back to like, oh, you could be 12, you could be 7, not much younger than that though, and not much older than 12. But the first time you had an experience that, it doesn't have to be the same kind of inflow, building, producing stuff, but where you mentioned things like about passing down, creating, building, right, putting something into the world or helping somebody. Can you remember a time that really sticks out for you that's a part of your history?
I love doing cartoons. I was a cartoonist.
Oh,
I loved
that's cool.
creating. I just like making people laugh.
Okay.
And so I would create cartoons all my life.
And that's funny because you're with your websites making fun of people. I'm guessing there's cartoons.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of where that came from.
Was there a specific, like, I mean, this is something obviously you're doing all the time. Was there a particular a particular cartoon or a particular show and tell or something like that an actual time, like it was this year, I was this old, I was at this place, and it was boom, wow.
Probably when I'd probably say 10 or 11. I loved Garfield. That was my favorite cartoon.
Me too.
Yeah. Jim Davis. And, I would always draw Garfield and Odie. I still can draw them to this day. Like I know how to draw them. And, I'd always I'd read the comic books, the little books that they'd have. I still have them. And I would just draw Garfield and Odie, and I make them do different things. And then eventually I just started doing my own cartoons. And then, when I was 12, that was the first time they started putting my cartoons in the paper, like the local paper.
Well, what did that feel like?
It was pretty cool. I mean, especially 12 years old, getting like $25 a cartoon. You're like, damn, this is easy.
that must have been, talk about significance and some bragging rights at school. Did that give you some social kudos?
I didn't tell anybody.
Oh, you didn't? Why
Mm-mm.
not?
I've never liked the attention.
Okay.
And that's really weird for someone that's been doing a podcast for 10 years, but I don't know. I don't like the spotlight on me. I like putting the spotlight on other people. I guess that's probably why I do the podcast, so I can highlight others.
So that's really fascinating. At 12 years old, that moment where it was that recognition of the significance. Like, this is something that other people are valuing. And by the way, it's something you created and built, right? That you're then giving to other people that they can hopefully have a chuckle, just like you experienced with Garfield. You said make people laugh. So here's where I go in for the kill. When was the first time you had to make somebody laugh to survive?
To survive? Like, what do you mean to survive?
Like, you're in a situation that was, shall we say, less than optimal, and there's a whole number of situations where they could be, right? I don't want to lead the witness too much, but you found yourself, it could be with somebody in the family where there was the possibility of being in trouble. You had to make them laugh, or somebody else in the family was in trouble, and you made them laugh to sort of cool things down. Or you're at school and there was a bully, and you made them laugh and they stopped bullying you. A time when you used it to survive, and I use the word a bit dramatically, but a time you used it as a survival mechanism of sorts.
One doesn't come to mind. Like, I was always the bigger kid, so I could always beat the crap out of someone. And to survive, I've always led a really fortunate life. I've never been of a place where I've had to use being funny to get out of things. Or, well, maybe when like, you remember, how old are you? Are you around my age? I'm 47.
77. I
Okay,
was born
yeah.
77.
So, well, you've only been over here for 20 years. So, growing up here, and especially on the East Coast in New York, we used to have like mischief night. It was the day before Halloween. And so you're some young, stupid punk kids. What you do is you go out and roll someone's house, or you get an egg and you throw it at their house. Do stupid kid stuff that you kind of regret. And I remember getting in trouble for that. And I remember trying to make my dad laugh to get out of getting in trouble. But that's the worst I've ever done.
But there's that's it, right? That's you've just figured out a red line all the way from getting in trouble during mischief night, doing something I really shouldn't have done. And you know what? That's the first time I remember to keep things good for me. I had to make somebody laugh. I had to make my dad laugh. And you know what? It worked. And I don't know if that was like the first time, like the first time, but I really remember that. And it really sticks with me, right? Part of your story. Okay. And before I knew it, I fell in love with cartoons. They were making me laugh. And I discovered that I could draw, and I like making these cool little cartoons. I can do this. I can copy Garfield. And I did it. And I did it. And I did it. And at 12, I got published in the local paper, and it just blew my mind. I was so proud that I was this kind of significance that I discovered. Other people like it enough too. This thing I created, and it's making these other people laugh. And you fast forward to today, and I get the biggest kick out of being in the mastermind group, helping the people that I help with. Recently, it's been this foot in the door ladder offer, and seeing the sort of building of the helping them build this home that they can pass parts of value off to their families and their clients, and all of this wonderful stuff because of this significance and this creation. Now I'm not like doing it for comedy nowadays, but I like to crack the occasional joke. But this is all about that ability to engage people with significance in a way that is it all goes back to that very early story of needing to make people laugh.
So are you saying, kind of, for people, if they wanted to break this down, tell more of kind of the origin story so they connect with that? Like how you were saying, oh, I loved Garfield. So, right. Or I like connecting. and
And in
it kind
fact,
of
the
draws
way
them
you
in.
can, sorry to interrupt, but the way you can connect this is with your 22 years old websites making fun of people story. I was still doing the cartoons, but with websites and making fun of people. My dad comes back to me and says, how are you going to actually make some proper money off of this? At that time,
Yeah.
I didn't have a joke to come back with him on, but that's what then led me into to doing what I do today. And so you're connecting these dots, and it's real.
Yeah.
It's human. And I mean, you could A/B test it. I'd love to see, see the results on this for you. But you're obviously got having success, right? But that's it, and that's what you can do as you listen to this show. Is you can look at the head part of it, right? Which you can figure out with our online assessment, with spending a bit of time thinking about the feedback from your clients, but also spend some time thinking about the heart. And obviously, I talked through how you go back to a moment in flow, and then back a bit further to when you were younger. And it helps to have, you can do it on your own. Obviously, it helps if you have somebody like we just did to go through this, but go back as far as you can to find out that heart part and start bringing that in, because that's unique. That's the ultimate differentiation. Nobody has got that Garfield story that you've got, and nobody on this planet, I would hazard a guess, has that exact sequence. It's just like there's only how many notes are there, and there's all these wonderful types of music, or how many primary colors and all the wonderful art. You have a unique story that nobody else has. And if you are not being intentional with that, you are leaving experience and money on the table.
I gotcha. I love it. Well, what's the website people go and check you out and have you help them with your story?
GoNarrative.com.
It's really hard to remember.
Yeah, go active. Let's go. And then narrative, like storytelling, GoNarrative.com.
I like it's an action too. I like that.
It's action. And that's why this playbook is called the Storytelling for Action Playbook, which is the framework to then really go and put this into practice, right? The getting into their head, really the details, and then putting it to practice. Playbook, practical, right? Action. GoNarrative.com. And so really there's some coaching. And then there's a 6-week story accelerator that we run as well, that goes through all of the head and all of the heart to draw this out, get it packaged up, get it written down, and give you that baseline for everything, including, let's not forget, when you've got your story all tied up and everybody's singing. We talked about the sales team. What about the HR team? What about your recruitment? What about your ads? You go out with a story that's cohesive across your whole business, what people see on the website, they hear from people, including the sales teams, and they see in the recruitment experience. You will rapidly, A, find the right people, and B, find people that want to be a part of that story, because not everybody wants to be a part of everybody's story, and that's fine, right? Yeah. I don't want to, do certain things in life, and you don't want to do certain things in life as well. So it's okay.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, everyone. Make sure you go check out the resources and the 7 different types of stories. And until next time, have a swank day.
I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want more content like this, make sure you click on the link on the screen or check out your most popular podcast platform where the full episode is there. And until next time, have a swank day. What are you doing? Go check it out. Click on the link. I'll see you soon.